I see some familiar faces. So good to meet everyone. I'm Cheryl. I'm the founder of Tiny Health. I do have a hard stop at 4. I actually have a consult call. I do still do some of them to help customers interpret their results. But I always like to join to say hi and kind of share my story a little bit in case you don't know the background of how I started Tiny Health and sort of what we're about, just to hear a bit about our mission. So great to meet y'all. Do you know kind of my backstory by any chance? I was just curious. Okay, because it's there on my About Us page. So I had a C-section of my first child about 4.5 years ago. My daughter, she was breached. Both my kids were breached. Something was kind of weird about my uterus, not having space to turn. And I was researching what a C-section would mean for a baby's lifelong health, because I heard that it wasn't good, but wasn't sure of what exactly until I found all this research around gut microbiome passing on from mom to baby through the vaginal canal. So actually what we think is happening is the vaginal microbes from the mom seeds the baby at birth, but it disappears really quickly. So the vaginal community is supposed to be lactobacillus dominated. However, lactobacillus is not commonly found in babies. They're not supposed to colonize a baby's gut. You do see lactobacillus being very commonly available in probiotics, and they're in the vaginal community. So a healthy vaginal community should be about 98-95% lactobacillus, specific species like crispatus and whatnot. We think that it goes there, pioneers, is the pioneering microbe in a baby's gut, and then it disappears by 4 or 5 days. You can't really sequence it, you can't find it anymore. But the role is for the bibs from the mom's gut to stick, to colonize. And that's what is the gut bacteria that you want to see dominating a baby's gut in the first year of life. So you want to see 4 specific species of bifidobacteria that are very good and efficient at digesting breast milk HMOs, the human milk oligosaccharides, to protect the baby's gut and train their immune system. And basically that's what comes from mom. If everything was great, then what I realized through my research is that, of course, with the C-section, the baby isn't passing through the birth canal, and so isn't getting the vaginal microbes and also gut microbes from the mom. We don't know. We think that there are 2 mechanisms. One is the vaginal community becomes more diverse in the last stages of birth and become more gut-like. So the vaginal community gets seeded with some gut microbes. That's one possibility. The second possibility is during the pushing, some fecal fluid comes out and inoculates the baby, and that's how they get the gut microbes. It's really interesting, right? So we don't quite know what, but the labor has a role to play with in this process. So a C-section or antibiotics at birth and in early life obviously disrupts this process, and hence disrupts the colonization of the right microbes for baby's lifelong health. And that leads to atopic march, which is a progression of allergic diseases, starting with eczema that may evolve into food allergies, and that may evolve into asthma by age 5 or 6, and then hay fever as an adult. And what was profound for me is that knowing how much the immune system lives in the gut, 80% of the immune system is in your gut and is programmed in the first 1,000 days by the beneficial or unfriendly bacteria. Like that allergic reaction, the atopic march, is a sign of the wrong programming in some sense, to crudely speak. So the immune system, the host immune system, is responding haphazardly to allergens, right? So there's something really interesting there about the connection between the gut microbia seeding at birth, and especially in the first few months of life, and potential allergic reaction, which is then a sign for other immune conditions, other chronic conditions that are linked later in life. So not only just atopic march, but that is a sign that your immune system, your child's immune system, wasn't set up correctly, and they're more susceptible to other things. So I know it sounds very kind of scary, and that was what I found, like, oh my gosh, did I screw up my child with the C-section? And then I found all these other papers showing that you can restore a baby's gut. in the first year. So by 1 year, there was this paper, if the C-section signature is kind of removed, then the baby's risk for asthma is reduced by 4x. So what's that? Like that is a vaginal seeding protocol, the swabbing that you could do during C-section, extended breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding is the #1 modifier after a C-section. Certain probiotics, but it has to be the right strains that the baby needs. And of course, all the other stuff like solids, when you start, what kind of solids you do, allergens, interaction with healthy soil, organic soil, and pet farm animals play a role too. So there's a bunch of factors. So I did all that I could to restore my daughter's gut and realized there wasn't a baby gut test in the market to measure if all that I was doing was actually restoring her gut enough and in the right direction. So 2 years later, I was pregnant with my son, and I wanted to measure my gut and my vaginal microbiome, because if I knew he was passing through that whole tract, that I wanted to make sure that is in good shape. And I realized I didn't have the bifidobacteria, the 4 strains that I needed to seed him. So then I knew my gut needed support, because even through a vaginal birth, and I did have a home vaginal birth with him, my second child, a VBAC at home, that was pretty radical. I realized that I may not have the right bacteria to pass on to him, even though I was exclusively breastfeeding. So then I knew that I needed to supplement myself with certain probiotics and supplement him. I didn't do it for very long. I only did it for 3 weeks. And then through the sequencing, the results, we saw that it kind of protected his gut for a whole year and beyond. So we don't, this is the second thing that I'm learning, that you don't need to over supplement a baby, especially infants, with probiotics, because too much of it is not great either. It suppresses diversity that you want to see in a baby's gut. So you do want precision supplementation, precision nutrition for the child as they're developing. And then as you get into the toddler ages, then you want to see other things. Now, aside from bifidobacteria, you want to see fiber digestion, protein digestion, short chain fatty acids, other things like Archimensea, which is important for metabolic health coming in. So now we have a full suite of tests for the entire family, because we show insights that connect family members. Sometimes we see the mom not having the bifidobacteria, the baby not having it, but the dad and the older sibling has it, and that could pass on and share with the baby, which is really interesting. So we do have an older child test now. As I mentioned, a vaginal test, a regular adult test for dads who want to take it, of course, a pregnancy test too. So that's my intro. And hopefully you get a good kind of intro to why I started it, a little nuance, a little technical, and what's supposed to happen there at birth. I would love any questions that you have before I have to go to my consult call.
Yeah, and we can, if questions come up for Cheryl, absolutely. The purpose of this is I want to walk you through examples if you haven't seen a tiny health test and what our results look like and all the wonderful things we offer. And then I would love to be able to introduce our membership program for our practitioners. That being said, this is not a formal presentation. This is really a conversation. So please just interrupt, or if you have a question for Cheryl before she jumps off in about 13 minutes here, please feel free to jump in. This should be more of a conversation than just a presentation. So that being said, I would love to just briefly hear, I've gotten to meet many of you through your interest forms and filling those out. So I just am so delighted to get to hear all the work that people do. And, but just that, you guys can learn a little bit about who else is on this call. If you wouldn't mind just briefly sharing, what type of practice you have. And then I would love to hear what your current experience with gut tests are. Do you use them? Do you not use any sort of microbiome testing? So just a brief introduction so we can all know who's here would be fabulous.
I'll go first because my little one may wake up in a few minutes.
Okay.
I'm Susanna, and I am a holistic nutrition consultant, and I run a platform for moms who are breastfeeding babies with food sensitivities or allergies. So I was really excited to discover Tiny Health in my 3rd trimester. My baby is 2 months old. and did the testing on myself, and then tested my little one on day 7, which is supposed to be a crucial window of time. And it was super intriguing. Much like Cheryl, I had a home birth, and my baby seated extremely low from my vaginal birth, which was very fascinating for me. And the majority of it was from the environment, which I'm so glad was at home for that reason. But he too seems to be having some digestive issues. And so it's just so interesting to see that his gut actually seemed to be really great for the majority of the testing. And so it doesn't really seem to be microbiome related necessarily, but I'm just so fascinated about all the lack of research with allergy babies and what Tiny Health is doing to learn more about this group of babies. And so I am just encouraging as many of my moms as possible to do this testing, both for the allergy research that Tiny Health is doing, but also just to see if there's anything in particular that they need to do to work with their little one to get on a specific probiotics or whatever, to see if that helps with their issues.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing and all the work that you do for all the families.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just want to point out, if anybody would like to share in the chat as well, thank you for initiating that. And I'm so glad you made it. I'm sorry about the challenges getting you on.
Oh, that's okay. It's totally fine. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I may just have to step away or bring baby in here.
Love seeing the babies. That's definitely one of the things I miss from being in-person medicine. So love when people have their kiddos. Very encouraged and welcome. Oh, great, wonderful. Yeah, I see a lot of GI maps for sure, and we're always happy to share some differences between our test and the other ones available. Yeah, so I know we had a little bit of technical difficulties getting started. So if anybody else would like to share their type of practice or their experience, please feel free to do so in the chat. But I want to make sure we get all the good information in. So I will continue on to talking about what does make Tiny Health different from other tests you may be familiar with if you are using other type of microbiome testing. And so I feel like is this a little small? I feel like this might be a little small. I'm going to make it bigger. So one of the major things that Tiny Health has an advantage is that we are one of the only tests that is actually designed and meant for the whole family, every single phase of life. So it was started, as Cheryl said, as initially a microbiome testing company designed around the ages of 0 to 3, because that really didn't exist. But now we are a place where you can test the entire family all on one platform. So that's super useful because you know that you're using the same bioinformatics team, the same sequencing technology. And so there really is a much better ability to compare between all family members and understand the whole family unit. And so that is one of the biggest things that sets us apart. There are some other early life microbiome testing companies out there, but they use a different technology. And so to get into that, one of the other major incredible things about Tiny Health is that we use metagenomics as our sequencing, shotgun metagenomics as our sequencing technology. So other tests like GI map that I know a lot of practitioners do use is a qPCR test. And while, this can be particularly good for looking for like very specific parasites or very specific microbes, because it can find that and amplify that and find very low levels, it does not look at everything in the gut. And really the best way and the only way to do that is use shotgun metagenomics. Our test tells you every single thing that is present in the microbiome, which gives you the highest accuracy in terms of relative abundance. So you really can't understand the whole community if you're not looking at the whole community and what's actually there. And that being said, even though, some of the 16S can look for one specific thing and amplify it, our threshold is down to 0.5%. So if there is a microbe that is taking up even 0.5% of your overall community, we report on that. And so we do very deep sequencing and very as well. So it's very specific. It's very inclusive. And so that is a huge benefit of shotgun metagenomics. And even with that incredible technology, you would think, okay, we're probably the most expensive test out there because we're using this incredible technology. We are actually one of the most affordable microbiome testing companies out there. You might see that some of the 16S sequencing are like the $99, $129. It is a little bit less expensive, but it is like way less information than we are able to give you through Tiny Health. In addition, we also have functional insights. And so because we do sequence everything in the microbiome, we don't just look for what's there, we also look for what genes are there. And so that allows us to look at the functional capacity, what genes are present. So it's not just, oh, we know Faecalibacterium are bugs that make butyrate. We can look how many genes are present in the gut, regardless of where they came from, that can produce butyrate. And so that gives you more of a functional insight to understand what the microbiome is capable of doing. Because that is one thing I do want to acknowledge, that some people say, oh, well, some other tests are able, they look beyond the microbes. They look at some of the proteins in the gut. They look at some like potential enzymatic activity. So Tiny Health does only look at the microbes in the gut. However, it does look at all of them and able to look at the gene capacity. So huge benefits to metagenomics, and we are incredibly affordable because we deeply believe in retesting. We think if you take an action, the action should be informed by results, and you should be able to look at the effect of the actions that you've taken to see if they're having the intended outcomes. As Cheryl pointed out, it's important. Endless supplementation is not necessarily the answer and can maybe have detrimental effects on the baby gut. And so being able to retest and see if the actions you've taken have had the intended effect, and whether or not to start a different probiotic, continue a probiotic, or stop a probiotic, you can assess that by retesting. So
I want to mention real quick too, because I do get this question a lot about PCR-based tests, GI map, GIFX. I like Lucy's, I can't remember her like full name. There's a blog, Lucy's Mailing or something. If you Google PCR versus shotgun, I think you might find Lucy's blog posts. We can share that too. She points out, like, when she uses the same stool to do GIFX, GI maps, and then a shotgun test, she used Thorn, which is like for an adult. You don't know the thing about PCR is you don't know if the E. coli they say is high or Streptococcus is high. Is that 5% of someone's gut? Is that 1%? Is that 0.01%? It makes a difference. And we don't know what reference ranges they're using, frankly. It's definitely for adults for sure, but it makes a huge difference when you know how much of it, the relative abundance of that specific bug in the community. So we just had someone who was flagged high for Candida, right? Like fungi. Now, using a PCR test, you can detect very, very low abundances because it's amplifying. It's kind of like, like looking for that very specific bug. They don't report on the full picture of the gut microbe in someone. So in our test, we didn't detect any. So it could be that the Candida is in very, very low amounts, like maybe 0.0001%. And we can't be sure it's Candida at that low levels. So we don't say, we don't report it. But a GI map or GIFX may detect that. But for us, it's like, it's in such low abundances that, yeah, maybe if someone is very sensitive to Candida, very low amounts, that could trigger something. But that's kind of in a way, like different tests have different powers, right? For us, for overall gut health and overall gut community, we think shotgun is the way to go because we want to see your 100% gut microbes represented, not just bacteria, but fungi, yeast. Harder to detect those, but we can. Viruses, parasites, archaea, protists, everything. So GI map, GIFX detect only those that you probe for. So they list the 30, 50 microbes that you want to check, and they report back on the levels of those, but not in a relative abundance way. It's just if they're high or low, again, you don't know. You have to kind of trust the test that, when they say it's high, but based off of what? Whereas shotgun, when it's high, is based off of a community of healthy people, adults or babies in that age range that we know, like 1% is too high and under 0.1% is where you should be, that kind of insight. So I didn't want to point that out because I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
Does that
and
make
so-
sense? Did you have any questions about that specifically? No? Okay. I need to hop off now, but it was so nice meeting everyone. I'll see if I can hop back on later, but thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, so let's dive into, hopefully I've convinced you the science and the technology that Tiny Health uses is like superior to many tests out there, and our reference ranges are, very uniquely designed for every phase of life. And so let's dive into some example of results. So one thing I like to pull out is this is a real kiddo, a kid that we had come to Tiny Health. Wasn't having any symptoms or had some constipation at that time, maybe a little bit of green stools, but at 4 weeks old, pretty young, hadn't shown any signs of any sort of inflammatory conditions. Parents submitted a Tiny Health test, and the sample came back as nearly completely unfriendly bacteria. And this kid was being breastfed, this kid was vaginally delivered. So we know all of these things that ideally set up a good microbiome, a healthy community. Even in the most optimal cases, sometimes we still see the gut become colonized by unfriendly bacteria. And you're probably aware that we don't want to see, no unfriendly bacteria. That's really important for immune training early in life. However, we do ideally want to see the baby microbiome colonized predominantly by bifidobacterium, the one that allows them to digest HMOs from breast milk, or if it's supplemented in formula. And so this was a great example of a case where who knows what could have happened in terms of eczema, atopic March conditions for this kiddo. But based on these results, the family started Avivo, a Bifidobacterium infantis probiotic, resampled about 2 months later, and we see a huge shift in the microbiome. And we still see the little bit of unfriendlies that we want to see, a little bit of variable bacteria, which is that healthy diversity for babies, and then was dominated by Bifidobacterium infantis. And in this case, I talked with the family, and they stopped the probiotic, and we are waiting on the next sample to come through to see, stopping the probiotic, did this community continue to look the way that it looks now? And so I just think that this is such a powerful example of a real case of, who knows what could have happened with this kiddo's immune system. And this is not, I did not just cherry pick like the best case I've ever seen. I have actually seen this multiple times. So just so powerful early testing and retesting. And again here, so I want to show you this, this child, Dashiell, was one of our earliest Tiny Health research customers. So there was no interventions at this time. We were really working on the reference ranges and understanding the baby microbiome. So between our own testing and using research, and here we see that this kiddo continued to have a lot of unfriendly bacteria, low beneficial bacteria, all the way up through about the first year of life. And this child, unfortunately, does have many gut issues, is having, I hate the term failure to thrive, but that is sort of the term that is often used, is just having a lot, kind of some chronic issues pop up. Unfortunately, the gut has now gotten onto a better path, but we see here, Rorik, I really like to point out here that this kiddo was monitored multiple times, also a very early customer, but at this point we're offering interventions. And we see here that by having a gut that was dominated by beneficial bacteria early in life, when he got to 5 months old, got his vaccines. We do know that, vaccines have many beautiful benefits and are able to protect children. However, we do know that this may have some influences on the microbiome as well. And it shows here that this kiddo, little shift, and then because he had such a great microbiome set up, was able to shift back. And so this really shows by setting up a healthy microbiome early in life, if you do need antibiotics, if you are doing vaccinations, if you are doing these things that we know can have so many health benefits, however, also can have some unintended potential side effects as well, by setting up a powerful, healthy microbiome early in life, you're able to recover from these sort of things that life throws at us much better. And so just really a powerful example of how resilient the microbiome can be if we are able to intervene early. And so I would love to show you real life what what our results look like. So, oh, this is, let me sign into the other kiddo. So this is an example of our entire family. Anybody have any questions at this point about our results or the microbiome, anything we've talked about so far? Oh my gosh, I feel like a part of all schooling should be how to do technology a little bit better, because obviously I did not learn that when I was in medical school. All right.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
I kept having to unshow my video. I just wanted to know, like, so if when their bifido and friendly bacteria improved, did also their symptoms improve? Like, and I know you mentioned that a little bit, but did their digestive issues also improve? The first example you said, or the first visual example you showed us, maybe not, like the boy who was maybe failure to thrive.
Yeah. Great question. So unfortunately, that kiddo was so early on that we weren't providing the earliest recommendations because we were just beginning, it was like right at the start when Cheryl was doing all the background research and getting the company started. And so unfortunately for that kid is still having some struggles. We're able to support the gut in terms of the contribution of any inflammatory triggers. And so that's there's sort of two phases, I think, about helping the microbiome. One, setting it up in a beneficial way. So it's training the immune system appropriately. So that's sort of phase one. If we identify kiddos early on and are able to access that, first couple years of life, awesome. The second phase that is important not only for little ones and for babies, but also for adults, children, is reducing the role of the microbiome in triggering a sensitive immune system. Right. So even if we've missed that earliest window where the microbiome we know is playing a huge role in educating the immune system, immune training, ideally that's when we're doing our recommendations and interventions. If we miss that window, we can still optimize the microbiome so it is not constantly triggering an immune system that is sensitive either due to dysbiosis early in life or just due to other factors that we know contribute to immune system related conditions, genetics, environment. So sort of two different phases of the microbiome that makes it, ideal for everybody to optimize their microbiome health.
And sorry, just real quick. And so in the examples where you're showing the children who were breastfed, I mean, I assume you'll get into like the differences between the children that were breastfed and the ones who were not. And then I'm also wondering, like, if you asked the parents, like if the mother was pumping or not, because I'd be curious to know whether or not pumping plays a role. And I would assume it does.
Yeah, I mean, so many amazing questions. I love this. So we do ask all of those questions in the health history surveys. So we are able to look at that level of depth in terms of the sort of metadata that we obtain. So we do with if you are pumping, there's some chance of introducing potentially other bacteria into the gut versus direct breastfeeding and formula feeding. So we are, when I look at results, I am oftentimes able to identify, without even looking at the metadata, is this a kid who's formula fed? Is this a kid who's being breastfed? But the wonderful thing that I have seen is, with some kiddos who do have a microbiome that looks more formula fed, when we're able to provide the education around HMO supplementation, or if they need additional bifidobacterium, we're able to help counteract some of that premature gut maturation that sometimes we see with formula. Because of course, formula is a reality. In an ideal world, everybody would be able to breastfeed, but there's just, it's so challenging, and there's so many things that go into that biologically, socially. We could do a whole talk about how the world is not designed to support women who are breastfeeding. But yes, so we are able to take that information and provide specific recommendations based off of what people are doing, how they're feeding their children, what types of food, not even just breast milk or formula, but for older kids, what types of solid foods they're eating, and provide specific recommendations around that. And then I realized I didn't answer your previous question about resolution of symptoms. I have met with a number of parents through consult calls who, by starting some of the recommendations that we've provided, do see improvement in symptoms. I do have to say it really tends to be somewhat age specific. I don't want to overpromise that, a child who's 11 years old, who's been having inflammatory challenges their entire life, that just by fixing the microbiome, we're going to be able to completely resolve that. And, Tiny Health is a wellness company. And so we are designed to provide this information and some recommendations, but we don't diagnose and we don't treat, but we can help you to understand the microbiome and the role that that may be playing in health, and provide recommendations on ways to potentially optimize the microbiome and reduce the role that it could be playing in these conditions. So yes, I have met with many parents who say, we started this, and one, that when they retest the microbiome looks better, and two, they have resolution of some, if not all of the symptoms. So this is what our results look like. And so you can see all the family members here. So this is one of the kiddos, Jonas. And so we got a sample from him at 7 days old, 6 months, 13 months old. And we see here just increased beneficial bacteria and reduction of the unfriendlies. And so when someone gets their results, they get a expert review note, which helps them just to prioritize their findings, prioritize their actions. And this is where our practitioners are just so amazing, because I do many consult calls. We work very hard to try to make the results as friendly, usable, accessible by everybody. However, there's so much information about the microbiome. And so people, having practitioners who are able to help work with their patients, who know the things that Jenny, like you were bringing up, how are you're providing breast milk, how are you doing that? Just getting even more into those details, understanding how your patients have changed in terms of what they're doing. We have surveys. We always welcome people to email us with changes, but you as a practitioner working with someone so closely can really be the best at adapting the things that you know about your patients, what you've been learning, and the results. So while we do aim to be as user-friendly as possible, there's nothing that replaces the role of the practitioner in understanding how this relates to all the other aspects of health. So, because I know some practitioners have been like, this is so user-friendly and it's so clear. What's the role? What's my role? I promise you still have a role in helping get the most out of these results for your patients. I don't know if there's, we work very hard to make this accessible. You're irreplaceable in your role. So here we can see, so like in this kiddo's first test, we classify insights as needing support, okay, or great. Needing support are the areas that we think could benefit from active action. And then within this, so you can imagine looking at all of this as a patient, we try to help people optimize the most important action, but practitioners are really helpful at prioritizing all of the actions we have over here based off of the different key insights that we share. And so for this kiddo, one of the important things, so when he was 7 days old, he was very low in his bifidobacterium. And then we saw through probiotic supplementation that this kiddo was able to increase in their bifidobacterium over time. So this is from March of 2021. And then we see in April of 2022 that their bifidobacterium has increased. And specifically the HMO.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, can I ask another question about the bifido?
Yeah, of course.
So when they retested, did they stop taking the probiotics for a period of time and then they retested?
Yeah, so we always recommend to people when they're resampling to stop about 5 days beforehand, so that we're not just testing what's passing through, but trying to assess the best of what's actually colonized into the gut, so we can more confidently make the recommendation whether, okay, this is going well, but let's continue. It's not quite there, versus this has really done its job. Let's recommend stopping. Or unfortunately, even with high quality products, for some reason, some guts just don't accept it. Let's try a different one. So yeah, great question. Yeah. And then what we see now, so in this one, actually interesting. So this is where for little ones, their bifidobacterium increased, but we actually then saw no Enterobacteriaceae, which is important for that little bit of immune stimulation. We don't want to see a lot of it, but this is really the difference between like a baby gut test and an adult gut test. Adult gut test would not care if you didn't have any, of those mildly inflammatory bacteria to help train the immune system. We care about that, and we'll let people know, hey, let's introduce this just a little bit by more time with animals, playing outside in nature. And I found some parents are like, okay, it's really scary out there in the world, but based on the results, I see like maybe a little less hand sanitizing and more soap and water. Let's go outside in nature. It can be scary just because the world we live in now, but I find that some parents can see this and feel really empowered to take some of these actions. And then also just to point out one of our older kiddos and the type of actions that we recommend there. So this kiddo, we see, for example, their fiber digestion is in the okay category. So we can provide specific recommendations like, hey, your potential to digest pectin is low. Let's provide some specific recommendations for increasing pectin fiber digestion. So we share foods that are high in pectin are apples, tomatoes, carrots. And so, this is a step above just saying, increase your fiber. We all know that that's beneficial. What fiber? When I go to the grocery store, I'm not trying to think like, should I get this vegetable or this vegetable? You're trying to prepare healthy meals. This, I think, really is helpful for parents to be able to say, all right, more plant-based foods, more fiber, but specifically, let's focus on some of these foods that can help with promote like a specific type of fiber digestion. Yeah. So, there's so much in here. It's really like, if you really dug into it, it's almost like a little thesis of information that you could learn about. But so that's sort of like the overall of our microbiome breakdown. And then here, I know someone had asked about commensals. So here you can see we provide you with the information on every single bacteria that we detect, or sorry, all the microbes we detect. So all the way down to 0.5%. We label them as variable, beneficial, or unfriendly. And you can click into these. In addition, if we don't know one, you'll see something like this. We detect it, we share that it's there, we let you know how much of the microbiome it's taking up, but at this point, there's not information about it. So if it's there, we let you know, and we let you know what the classification of it is as well. At this point, we have over 200,000 microbes identified. And then we're constantly doing research to see, has science at this point been able to identify some of these unknown bacteria? And we're constantly updating this to be the most up to date in terms of being able to classify beneficial, variable, or unfriendly.
Does it specifically say how much that kid has of each of those?
Yep. So you can see here, so like this kiddo unfortunately has 25% Ruminococcus navis. And so we recommended a Bifidobacterium infantis probiotic, because research is showing that specific species of bacteria is the most effective at reducing Ruminococcus navis. And it's variable because we don't need it to be at 0. It's not unfriendly. We know high levels of it, though, earlier in life are associated with eczema, inflammatory conditions. So that's why it's a variable bacteria. Small amounts, good. Too much, not so good.
So for each one of those commensals, you could click on it and it will say your kid has this percentage, and studies show that, this percentage may be generally healthy for babies.
Yep, exactly. So within each of these, we have references. So you can click on those. It will take you to the literature that we're citing for that. On the right-hand side here, it gives you the percentage of the microbiome that it is occupying. And this is where the difference with shotgun metagenomics really comes in. You can feel confident that this bacteria is actually taking up about 6.3% because we know everything that's in here. It's not leaving out things that it doesn't know to look for. So it really you can feel pretty comfortable in the accuracy of the relative abundance. And so like this one, for example, this is a variable one. If it's too high, we do flag it. Later in life, it's been found to be elevated in people with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. And we do know like long-term in people who have a family history of type 1 diabetes, this bacteria has been found to be elevated. But we also know that people with cardiovascular disease later in life have lower levels or have low levels of this. So it is variable. So we let you know if it's variable, and if it's too high, we'll flag it. We flag things that are over 15% of the microbiome. We think really, regardless of who you are, you're taking up too much space. And then specific ones have flags. So like Ruminococcus navis is one that we have specific thresholds for. Bacteroides fragilis is one we have specific thresholds for, just because based on some research, we're able to identify, like, really, as you were getting to, like, what is the threshold that we think that this variable bacteria tips into having less beneficial effects. So tons of information in here.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Do they give a breakdown as to the, can they show you the bacteria in terms of the phylums? Like, you have this percentage of proteobacteria, you have this percentage of.
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually not in here because it's only, we're like actively testing this right now. So it should be released really soon, but we do realize so much research is done on the phylum level. And so, like, wow. I mean, the utility of phylum level information is like a little questionable because it's like, just a few major groups. But since there is so much research that is done on that level, we want to be able to provide that information. So that is something that is in our beta right now. Our science team is working on those metrics and should be released soon. And the great thing is that when we release something, we populate it back into every other report that we've ever done. So if you took a sample a month ago and we release a key insight now, it will be populated into that set of results.
Wonderful.
Okay, that was my question. I was wondering, like, if I log back in, would I see these beta?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's great. Our philosophy is provide people with as much information as we have. We don't hold anything back, which is why, for example, our histamine production is a newer insight. That's why it's in beta. And the reason it's in beta is because we don't have the action cards linked to it yet. Those are in development. We're working on a card that will let you know what high histamine containing foods are, certain probiotics that have been found to be histamine degrading. But just because we don't have those out yet, we don't think we should hold back that information. So we will release it in beta. So we really believe that your people should have all the access to their information. Like, that's, knowledge is power, and it's their health information. So we should share it with them.
I guess my question would be, though, how long would that actually be relevant? You know what I mean? Because of the fact that the idea is to continue testing to see what your microbiome, how it currently stands. Like, does it really matter? You know what I mean? Like, in some ways,
it's a little bit more useful.
Like, it could.
Yeah, it's a little bit more useful if you've tested recently when we release something. If you tested like 6 months ago, it might be interesting to go back and see, does that new insight we've developed maybe help explain something that was happening 6 months ago? But you're absolutely right. Like, any changes that have happened since then, it wouldn't reflect that. But so it's always a good idea to resample after taking actions, but it would really only apply to the previous results. So that's sort of a highlight. There's so many things we could dive into here, and I'm always happy to go over stuff at a different time, but we have about 10 minutes left. I want to respect everybody's time. And so I would love to just highlight a couple of other things about Tiny Health Test. And so one thing, just briefly, if you do work with women who are trying to conceive, or women who are pregnant, or just women at all, because vaginal health is always important, we do have a vaginal microbiome test as well. And so I won't go into too much detail here, but similarly to the gut types that we've developed, we have vaginal microbiome, community state types. We have lots of insights related to preterm delivery, potentially like some factors relating to difficulties with conception, and just so many insights for the vaginal microbiome too. So just something I want to highlight. In addition to expanding beyond the infant gut, we have also started to include vaginal microbiome testing as well. So something I'm always happy to chat more about. I really think that this is so important. But yeah, sometimes we were like, oh, Tiny Health, wait, you do adults? You have vaginal insights? So yes, we do. Can you just
break down the test for us? I got the sample report and I tried to look on the website, and I still honestly don't really understand. It looks just at bacteria, at commensals, potential pathogens. Does it look at immune like inflammatory markers? Does it look like at digestive factors? Just a really quick list of this test.
Yeah. Let me pull those results back up. I'm so sorry. I keep losing my results portal. I don't know where it's going when I close it. Yes, so we have lots of inflammatory related insights. So for key insights, things related to the immune system for babies in particular, we look at bifidobacterium because we know that that's such an important microbe in early life. So we do comment on bifidobacterium levels. We comment on opportunistic pathogens. So these are bacteria, again, they don't need to be not present, but we don't want to see elevated levels, and elevated levels are defined by whatever age that person is, because babies can have more of these and it's not necessarily a problem. Whereas if adults have the same levels that a baby has, it would be something that we would want to address. So these opportunistic pathogens are ones that are flagged only if they're above a certain threshold. We have metabolic health measures. So this is looking at the Akkermansia bacteria. This is related to blood glucose. This is related to liver disease. So we have those insights. We do look at parasites and infection microbes specifically. The difference with opportunistic pathogens is that these ones get flagged at any level. There's no threshold it has to meet. If we see it, we flag it, which is the difference between opportunistic pathogens.
But basically, it's all microbes. There aren't other tests. It's not doing calprotectin. It's not doing.
No, that is, yep.
It's just an all microbe test. And obviously,
Yes.
you can correlate that to inflammation and all that stuff. But that's
Yes.
what just
Yeah.
a bunch. And all of them are broken down like you showed us.
Mhm.
Are there any other graphs? You know how you just showed us each one? You had to click through each one to see what percentage. Is there any other graph? All I really saw was that green bar that's like, you have this much good and this much bad. And to me, that was too simple. So I'm trying to understand as a provider how you would work with this and what you see.
Yeah. I mean, we are constantly updating the visuals within our app, how we communicate information. So like this, definitely like super happy if you want to chat at some time too about what you would like to see. Like this is, thank you so much for bringing this up, because this is like totally what I mean by having the conversation, what is actually useful for people who would be using this. One thing that we've heard a lot from people is, particularly parents, they want to know how their kid compares to other kids. So that's something that we're working on currently, how to best, like right now we do have a compare sample, but this is really just showing like all the different possibilities. We should identify like this is sort of average, 50% of kids are within this range. So that's one thing we're working on. We have, if you have multiple tests, you can see changes over time. But I guess I would love to just hear more about what you're interested in.
Cohort that it's compared to at this point. At this point, there's not a healthy cohort that it's compared to.
Yes. And I love that you bring that up. That's something that we are definitely internally talking about, how to give people a better understanding, not just high, low, but like what the comparison is. We're working on borderline evaluations as well. So people can tell, like, are they super high? Are they borderline high? Just because there is so much nuance between low, typical, high.
Okay. I thought, when you clicked on each different bacteria, it said your kid has whatever, 1% this or whatever you're going to say. I don't know what percentage. And then I thought there was some comment about it to help kind of, get a sense of what that means.
Yeah, so we do let you know, like sort of big picture, how it's related to beneficial effects, or if it is variable, what it's related to when it's too high, what it's related to when it's too low, but we don't have those specific numbers. But we do, like, I know if you're familiar with like GI map or GI effects, there are some tests that have really nice, like 50% of the population falls within this. And so it is something that we are definitely aware of, and I think would be a huge benefit. But it's also kind of hard because there's just not the same level of baby information.
The question would be, hey, if you hear, hey, I have 50% bifidobacter and bifido is good, then how does the person know whether theirs is appropriate amount, or do they have is there anything on the test to give you any sense of that?
Yeah, so it is where you fall in the key insight. So like this kiddo, we know, so that's not the best example because they are Black personalities. So like here, while you might not know exactly what number you're aiming for with diversity, we do let you know it's in the red, it's lower than ideal for your age, and it's in the need support section of the key insights. So that's how you know that that's an area that needs to be worked on. You're absolutely correct that we don't give them like shoot for this specific number. That is something that we could work on optimizing in the future, but we do let them know this is something that does need support. You're this sort of deep into the red, and that this is something that should be focused on. But the specific numbers of that is something that we can work to optimize.
General overall diversity marker.
Pardon?
That's specific to each microbe. It's just an overall diversity or no diversity, or good or not good.
Yeah, and so I think I'm getting a little bit more of what you're trying to ask. So we think the meat and potatoes of this result is the interpretation here of the insights that we have developed that are built up of multiple microbes. We don't often recommend actions based on one specific microbe or not. So the only exception to that is overabundant species. If we detect something that we think is present at too high of levels, we will give specific recommendations to try to adjust that. So for example, Bacteroides fragilis is high in this kiddo. So we recommend specifically a Bifidobacterium longum probiotic because that has evidence behind it to specifically help reduce Bacteroides fragilis. Otherwise, our insights tend to be more built up around a collection of a group of bacteria that we have built an insight for, that we have used research to sort of do that extra step. So we go beyond breaking down just the microbes that are here and saying like, increase this one, decrease this one. We tell you, okay, what does this collection of microbes actually mean? And so we try to break that into a collection that then you can target based more on like a functional, like a clinical or functional output, if that makes sense. Adult tests tend to be a bit more like, here's a bad bacteria and here's something we can give to target it, like a biocidin or like grapefruit extract is another one. We tend not to recommend those. We think more on like the whole community level, unless it is one that we know we kind of want to focus on getting down. So we try to do that extra interpretation step for you to understand what the actual impact of all those microbes together is. All right. Okay, so the last thing I want to share with you is that we are just about to launch our practitioner membership program. And so what this is a way to be a practitioner who is a member of Tiny Health, and that gets you access to discounted kit prices. So $30 off gut test and vaginal test. And so this is really an ideal program for practitioners who are thinking of using 6 or more tests in 1 year. The membership just pays for itself just in the discounts alone. However, there's many other things that like hundreds and hundreds of dollars of perks that come along with that we really can't even just quantify the financial benefit from. So we have unlimited support if you are a practitioner member. So we do offer consultation calls. These are more directed at like individual customers who want help with understanding their results. Then our membership program for customers, they get 2 free consults a year and then pay for them after that. Practitioners who are members, unlimited support. This also includes email, chat. I'll talk to you on the phone, drop-in support hours that we'll have where you can show up on a Zoom call and just chat about results. We're developing a practitioner portal that will be out in early 2023. And this will be a way that tests that you order for your patients will all be in one place. So it's almost like a Tiny Health electronic medical records just for Tiny Health. But that way, currently the way that practitioners are working with their patients is to have their login shared. So they'll create an account, they'll share it. You can look in that. With the practitioner portal, you have access to all your patient results in one place. We have webinars that we host, and then we also have a community of practitioners that we are building. I know many people practice remotely or independently. So if that's a case for you, this would be a great, even if it's not the case and you just want to have more practitioners to bounce ideas off of, talk about results, we have developed that. And we're also working on a patient referral program for our practitioner members. And the idea behind this is many parents have questions beyond the microbiome. We can offer insights into ways that microbiome is related to various things that their children or even that they themselves are dealing with. However, I oftentimes get asked, like, what do I do about my kids' constipation? I have tried so many different things. We would love to be able to refer people who are still having questions outside of the microbiome and want additional support to our incredible practitioners like you, who are able to use the microbiome, but also go beyond and also like work as a practitioner, which is we are, as I said, are a wellness company, so we're not able to fill that role. But we would love to be able to refer to people that we know have the same shared insight and the same shared understanding of the importance of the microbiome and just a similar philosophy and approach to health. So this is something that is getting launched ideally within the next couple of days. And otherwise for our non-member practitioners, we do offer a discount code because we do want to continue to work with people even if they are not at the place where they are ready for a membership level. But yeah, so this is also something in development, something we have built basically by talking to many practitioners and understanding what it is that they want to see and what would be the most useful for them in terms of using tiny health in their practice. And so this is something that is very much able to be a working model based off of feedback. So that's what I got. I know it's 3:35 my time. So we're a couple minutes over. So please hop off if you would like, but I'm here to answer questions. The questions so far have been amazing and great, super grateful for them. But yeah, I would just love to hear if anybody has any questions.
In regards to the membership program, can you, like, if you start with one, can you switch to another at any such point? Based on,
yeah,
like, you're locked into one of these memberships, whatever you choose?
Yeah, so the memberships are at this point an annual membership. So there is a one-time membership fee, and then after that, you are able to access all the perks for a year. If you are currently a Tiny Plus member, which is like a slightly higher discount, but doesn't really come with any of the other perks along. I mean, it does have perks, but it doesn't have like practitioner specific perks. We are able to transition you from a Tiny Plus membership, which is designed again, like mostly for directly to the consumer. We are able to transition that. If you are not a member and decide to become a member, that is of course welcome and encouraged. Yeah, so it is flexible, but the membership is for a year. Oh, no, you did not miss the, so it is a $199 fee. And so, or $199 membership fee, that's annual. And so the math on that, just in terms of the discounts alone, is if you are ordering at least 7 kits in a year, that membership fee, the discounts alone. So if you are doing more than 7, it'll start like the membership fee is paid. Or honestly, if you just do like a couple of consult calls with us. Oh yeah, no, amazing question. So the practitioner membership is for practitioners. And the idea behind this is many people have asked, can I order tests for my patients? Now, I think something that you're bringing up, and this is a really good point, is so some people want to order on behalf of their patients because microbiome testing is a big part of the work that they do. And if you have like a overall fee that you have for your patients, this is something that would be a part of that bundle. However, I know some people also, microbiome testing is not necessarily specifically their purview, but they want to be able to offer this to the people that they work with. So they might not go over the results necessarily with their customers or their patients or their clients, but they want to say, hey, I think that this is something that would be beneficial for you to have. And so yeah, I guess the question is for practitioner membership, is it only ordering on behalf of patients, or would you also be able to have patients order with a discount code for you? And I think that that's something that we could definitely provide, is a way for you to order and get the discount, but also a way for you to share with your clientele for them to order on behalf of themselves. We would just have to figure out how to get that into the practitioner portal if you would like to have access to their results. So yeah, I will add that to sort of my like logistical working list on how to make sure that if you are a member, that you are getting access to all of these perks, but you are also able to have your patients order themselves or order on behalf of your patients. Yeah, thank you for that question. It's those types of questions that really help us figure out like how is this absolutely the most useful for you all in the way that you work. Parasites, yeast, yes. Those live under the parasites and infection key insight. So these are the ones that we currently have identified as our parasitic or infectious microbes. And then the yeast, most people want to know about Candida, and that lives under the opportunistic pathogens here. And then also some other infectious bacteria that people often want to know about, like H. pylori, C. diff, under opportunistic pathogens. So yes, it does. Looks for everything. If it's there in the gut and science has identified it, even if science hasn't identified it, we will report it to you. It might just have a name like CAG 5301. So if it's there, we do it. Question, able to do consults with the tiny team by going through us? Another great question. Thank you for that wonderful logistical question. The goal of the practitioner program at this point is to enable practitioners to be able to talk to their clients, their patients about this test. And we are offering support to the practitioner if they have questions about talking about this test with their clientele. However, I do see that, again, if microbiome testing is not, if you are a practitioner, but microbiome testing is not a part of your practice, would people be able to talk to us directly as a part of the membership? I'm going to get back to you on that. That's a great question. I'm going to add that to my logistical list to figure out. So TBD, but I love that idea of maybe not, unlimited number of consults, because that really is designed as like a support measure for practitioners, but maybe like a discounted option for those individuals who order through their practitioner to be able to do consults. All right. Does the parasite testing also check for the eggs? It does not. So because it's like in the egg, we don't get access to that information. So the best way to do that would be like an ONP test, like the ova and parasite testing. And also just to also comment on that, we can't test for like flukes or tapeworms because we'd have to get like the whole genome for that. So because it's just a tiny, the test is basically a Q-tip and a tiny swab of the stool. We would have to, like, if you were looking for flukes or worms, you'd have to get a part of the worm. And since that is not consistently in the stool, the chance that you would maybe not get that is pretty high. And so for eggs and for worms and flukes, that would be something we would recommend going to a healthcare provider who is able to do like those culture type tests. For microbes, it looks like it says high, absent, or typical. If so, this gives a way to evaluate. Yes, it does. So within the insights, like for the opportunistic pathogens, this is very small. You can see here, so like Enterobacteriaceae in this kiddo, 1.13%. That's typical. Here we let you know E. coli 0.94 for this kid's age is classified as high. So we do let you know if they're typical, high, absent, and that is in overabundant species as well. We give you the amount that's overabundant. So this kid, their top species, Ruminococcus navis, is high. Also the Bacteroides fragilis percentage and whether or not that's high. Is there a printout? Yes, so we see, so we have an option for people to print their results. So this will generate a PDF. And the nice thing about the PDF is that it prints out the expert review note that comes along with it. It prints out the need support section, and then also prints out the opened version. Like if you were to click into each of these, it prints that out, since we know that if they are printing out their results and sharing with a practitioner, that this is the information that would be the most useful. We also do that for the OK results. We provide this information. And then the OK, oh, I see. We provide all of it. And then we also provide the whole list here. You look out without. Oh, got it. Yeah, I can send you, we have an interactive sample report. So I can send you our interactive sample report, and then I can also, if that does not provide all the sufficient information, then I am happy to provide even more. So yeah, I'll send that to everybody. Yes, I will send to all. Yeah, so we don't have an interpretive guide at this point specifically meant for practitioners. This is a very new arm of our product. So if that's something, we aim to have the whole thing be an interpretive guide, because we ideally want to be how the results be understood by anybody who logs in. So the goal is for this entire thing. I think that's also a little bit of a difference between some of the other tests that you might be familiar with, is they come along with an interpretive guide, because if you just looked at the results, you would not know what's going on unless it's something that you are highly familiar with. So we do aim to have our results be pretty digestible without needing like a specific interpretive guide. But I do think that, educational materials that we develop for our practitioners, that we can do deeper dives into some of the insights. Let's see, did I miss? Okay. High absent typical is only for potential pathogens, not for commensals, right? So we do have, so for all the bacteria in the gut, we do have, you can look at any bacteria you're looking for, we have the percentage of it. So anything there, you can find the percentage of it. In the key insights, we do have, so like for bifidobacterium, you can see all of the bifidobacterium in the gut is 8.3%. Down here, we pull out 4 HMO digesting bifidobacterium, 4 that we know are very powerful, high potential for HMO digestion. And so we pull those ones out specifically in this insight. And then we also, for like an insight like gut inflammation, we have identified the Hexa LPS species. So while this is not one particular species, it does let you know that collection of that type of bacteria is there at 1.12%. Mucus degrading species, 38.65%. And so this is a metric that is composed of multiple bacteria, but we let you know all those species that do that function, this is the percentage that they are present at. So you can find information on every single microbe and the percentage that it is present at. You can also see the work that we've done to make groups of bacteria based on their function. You can see that. For our associations with different conditions, you can see these are all the bacteria that have been linked to constipation. And we let you know microbes with levels that are in green are associated with babies who do not have constipation. So you can see here, these are all good. Red means that's a level that is associated with constipation. The grayed out is just, it's neither associated nor not associated at the levels that it's currently at. With our functional insights, it's like fiber digestion, we let you know how many genes are present in the gut that does this. So it's, again, not specific to microbes. This is looking at gene capacity. So, and like we pointed out, we're not looking at anything that is a functional output. So we are not actually looking at a short chain fatty acid. We are not actually looking at the outcome. We only look at microbes, but we can look at the genetic capacity to perform that function. Let's see. So right now the practitioner membership is designed for one practitioner to use. But I do want to talk about the, like, what it would like group practice. That's sort of like a next level, depending on just how many people are in your practice, because we do want to provide discounts for people, particularly if your whole practice is planning on using it. That's something that we would definitely be thrilled about and so inspired by and really excited about. And so we would love to discuss like what that could look like for an entire practice. But I think it really depends on, like, is it 2 people in a practice? Is it 10 providers? And sort of, just because we want to make sure that we are offering all the support that we say we'll offer. And so that would just need to be adjusted a bit on like how many people would be a part of that membership, but definitely can chat with you more about what that would look like. We would love that. We would love to chat about that. You guys, your questions are so amazing. I'm so grateful for this group of people. Thank you. Well, so for next steps, I will follow up with everybody who is on this call, and then you can use that email as a way to continue if you have additional questions. And I will send you information on the membership program when it is launched. And then if you are interested in moving forward as either a non-member practitioner or a member practitioner, we would love to work with all of you. And so, yeah, I will send you a follow-up email and we can go from there, but I will stick around. Please feel free to jump off whenever you'd like, but I will stick around until nobody else is here. Oh, absolutely. I can include the webinar link as well. Yes, and also thank you for all the work that all of you do. You just do such amazing work for kiddos and their families, and we're so excited that you found Tiny Health.
I may have missed something, but is there any benefit to us for recommending Tiny Health to our patients or to our clients? I mean, in terms of like getting, like I know with other companies, sometimes for practitioners, they'll have a discounted rate for the practitioner if you recommend, to your clients, something like that.
Yeah. So our goal with the discount is you are able to use that in any way that you would like. So that can be passed on to the customer, the 30% that, or the $30 that is saved per test. You can just fold that, keep that as a like referral discount. And
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused, I think. So it says save $30 per test, but the normal price is $179, right?
It's $199 now, actually.
Oh, $199. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the vaginal tests are $149 and the gut test is $199. We did have a price. We've had a couple of price increases since we first launched. So our aim is to stay competitive while also continuing to be able to grow as a business. And so that's the price we've landed on right now.
Okay.
But yeah, so and part of the reason behind that, just for like total transparency, is we have originally been working with many affiliates and influencers because this is sort of like how you can help a company grow. And because unfortunately, like I know like a whole wide range of practitioners here, but I know at least my experience when I was in the conventional medicine world, practicing in like a hospital-based setting, this was not available. This is not the type of work that was being done. And like probiotics are starting to make more of a, a presence in that world. And so we did start initially by like promoting a lot through practitioners and through people who have a large social media following. That's just the way the modern world works. And we do have an affiliate program where we do provide a like a kickback for generating customers and introducing their like very hard-earned, trusted audience to Tiny Health. We felt like that is separate from a practitioner program because people wear both hats. Some people wear an affiliate hat and some people wear a practitioner hat. Some people wear both, but we wanted to make sure that the practitioners have a discount that they are able to use in whatever way they would like. But we don't want to encourage like a kickback for using a test for a patient, because we think our test is very high quality. And so we want practitioners to feel empowered to use it because it's the best option there is. And we want to provide a discount for people who are engaging with our test frequently. And so people can wear both hats, but we don't provide a necessarily like referral discount for practitioners because we want to make sure that we are honoring that practitioners are not like being influenced by a kickback or something like that. So if that makes sense, we've done a lot of thinking around this, and I'm always happy to answer more questions around that because we want to, provide a thank you for your hard-earned work in getting a trusted group of either followers or patients, while also, staying in like a solid moral ground in terms of like people using our test because they truly deeply think it's the best thing out there.
Hi, I'm a little, if you could kind of explain a little bit with the membership and you're referring to, like the $30, like the discount. I guess I don't really understand who's purchasing that test. You pay the membership and then the provider, pays for all those tests at a discount?
Yes.
Okay. And then the
Yeah.
patient buys it from the provider?
Yeah. So the way that this is designed right now is really for people who are wanting to fold this into part of their practice. So in the same way that you order other tests for your clientele or your patients, you would order a Tiny Health test as a part of like your lab testing.
Okay.
However, as it was brought up earlier, for people who want to be a part of the practitioner membership, but perhaps, don't often order labs for their patients, what would the approach for that be? And I think that is something that we can work on building into this, is like a way to provide a discount for patients to order, as if you're the practitioner member, but you want your patients to order directly if you don't generally order labs for people. So that's something we can definitely build in and work on, communicating like the sort of the nuances of like you ordering versus your patient ordering themselves. But, if you want to be a member and you want to get access to these other perks, that's definitely something we can work on. Yeah, especially now that that's come up a couple of times, I'll make sure that we work that into the membership model.
So otherwise, patients can they learn about Tiny Health and then they purchase it directly from you guys, and then they're able to see the results themselves and get those recommendations.
Yes, so that is the sort of the way our company has operated up until very recently, when we just started having so many wonderful practitioners like yourselves reach out, and we realized that there's a way that we can better support practitioners using this in their practice. And so that is the sort of like the goal of building this arm of the company, is to figure out how to best be a test that can be used by practitioners, while also still offering our customers who maybe don't have a practitioner that is involved with us to order this test.
And so I think I just saw the chat and I kind of have that same question in regards to, so the discount, does that mean that as providers, we're supposed to, or I mean, it would be up to us of what we would charge the patient, but it would be that $199, and that's what you were referring to with being that discount?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm realizing I should probably have a category on here of like, what if you're not part of anything? What do you get if you just come straight to Tiny Health and you're not a part of any membership? So yes, that would be a $199 test. And so the $30 discount, or sorry, $199 for a gut test, $149 for a vaginal test. So that $30 that's saved, because I know some practitioners are like, well, I order the lab, but then I also do, the whole consultation part of it, the conversation. and they want to provide their patients, their clientele with one cost. Here's the cost for this overall visit with me. And so this is basically designed to provide a discounted kit, and then that discount can be passed on to the patient, or the provider can keep it as part of their, like, I'm a part of this membership program. You know, this is me paying myself for being a part of that membership program. You can use that in any way you want. Pass it on, don't pass it on. We are fine with any of that.
Thank you.
Did you say that that the membership for practitioners is 200?
Yeah, 199, but yeah, 200.
Mm-hmm.
And that is equivalent to the same membership fee that we have for the membership for customers directly. So it's the same membership fee.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I had a question about how to utilize this test. Unfortunately, I clicked on the link for the interactive sample report, and it wasn't not interactive for me. So honestly, I could be missing things. But my understanding is that you can get some of these, like, whatever you guys are calling them, not potential pathogenic bacteria, and you guys are looking at tons of these things, whatever you want to call them, commensals. And let's see. And it's saying, like, you can click on each one, and it's really cool because it can tell you some data about that one, and it can tell you maybe what percentage the kid has. But right now, there's no way to say, hey, your kid has more or less than most people. So I guess my point is, like, how do you use that? I realize there's that bar that's like, your kid has 75% beneficial and, 25% not beneficial. But how do you put that together into a functionally, like, useful picture? And what, other than telling them, hey, take a Vivo with Bifido, how else am I going to manipulate what I'm saying to a patient just when I have, like, a cool list of different microbes that are sitting in their gut, but I can't tell them whether it's normal or not? And even if it's 75% good, like, how's that? Should it be 90% good? And so how to use that?
Yeah. So I think that, and this is something that we're constantly working on trying to clarify, is this is a good, helpful metric, just sort of big picture what's going on. I actually think that this is probably like it's nice to show every single bacteria that's in there. I think that this is probably like one of the less useful parts of our website. I think the most useful part is the key insights. That is basically where we take all of those bacteria that we do report on and let you know what they're actually doing. Like, what is actually going on? Like, why do we care?
Exactly. Within that part, do you tell any as to whether this person has more or less? Like, hey, you have, bacteroides and it's associated with constipation, but there, does it say you have more than the healthy cohort without constipation? Or how, again, do you use that clinical insights just to say, hey, off and you need more Bifido, so I'm going to give you probiotics with Bifido? I mean, other than that, how do you use this?
Yeah. So the way that you use it is by looking at the key insights and then looking into the areas that need support. So like so this is a good example of, this is where we pull out. We don't do it for every bacteria, but for ones that we think are very important, we pull out specifically, these ones are too high. We think these ones for your age, they are just too high. So it doesn't say that on this page, which is something I can definitely share with our product team, that it would be really nice to know on average how many people, what the average person's percentage is. I think that's a great idea. But really in the key insights, that's where we tell you which in your microbiome list, which of these are in a good range, are in a range that need attention, and what to do about it. So I think that this page is this is the page where you are going to look at and know what are the next steps here.
Is that on the interactive sample report? That must be. I just couldn't get to it.
Yeah. And so the interactive report, there's a lot of things that are clickable. Every single thing is not. We try to make the highest impact ones.
Try again.
Yeah, so just we have the most interactive sample here, so I can definitely answer any questions. Yeah. And so here, what you see is okay, this lets you know this is definitely too high. This is definitely too high. And then you can, in the action plan, there are things that are like specifically targeted to that thing. So reduce Bacteroides fragilis, we click on that. And then it tells you these are good probiotics, like these are specific probiotics to take. And so, because I think one thing I'm realizing by talking to a lot of parents and like as practitioners, you probably have some insight to this, but all probiotics are not created equal. And a lot of parents don't know there's bifidos, there's lactobacillus, there's spore-based, like they'll just Google probiotic and whichever, like whoever is paid for the highest advertising pops up first. That's the one that parents often buy. So we are hoping to provide education about like that there are specific ones that are helpful for your specific results.
I had a
so-
comment about that. I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt you. But like, so could you provide, because I noticed, like bifidolongum, there could be multiple strains or types within that particular strain, right?
Mhm.
And so how would is there information about, the nuances of each particular strain?
Yeah. So in our product recommendations, like for example, we know specifically that like the B-longum BB536 is the most effective at reducing Bacteroides fragilis. So these ones specifically have that. For other like bifidobacterium ones, we don't we try to recommend probiotics that do have strain level information, have high quality ingredients, have information about the colony forming units in it, and have some amount of clinical like proof of efficacy. Again, it's really hard to get, like there's not a lot of double-blinded clinical studies on probiotics, unfortunately, but we do work very hard to provide recommendations that meet all of those criteria, just because there are so many probiotics out there. So I mean, there's many parents who like have a probiotic that they're using for their kiddo without realizing there's no information on the actual number of bacteria in that in that product. Like, why would they not provide that? So we do, so it's not always strain level specific necessarily, but we do, that is one of our 4 criteria that we do look for when recommending products. And we're kind of constantly updating our list based off of our ability to sift through all the things that are out there. And frankly, we have we see so many samples now that we also have a really good sense of like what works, what doesn't work. Yeah, so we do, that is one of the things that I think is really helpful, is we provide very specific product recommendations. Again, as a practitioner, there might be things that you use that you've seen really good benefit with this does not mean that like don't use anything else, but we, if you don't have a recommendation for a specific thing, we do have some that we can recommend.
Is it reasonable to say using this test, especially for little babies, you'd probably just be doing a lot of probiotic manipulation? I mean, I just feel like in that age group, in older people, like you said, you're trying to use botanicals, even antibiotics to kill stuff. But I'm just guessing my gut from hearing all this is that we're just going to be kind of manipulating probiotics. And I mean, I think, there's huge diversity, but honestly, there's really not that many brands of baby probiotics. So I don't know how much I'd be using and being able to do actionably.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And so for babies, like babies don't really do they don't eat a lot of stuff. They eat breast milk or they eat formula, and that's really the main intervention. So you are correct that we provide information on like high quality formulas if that is something that parents are needing to do. And or HMO supplements, for example. A lot of parents don't know many formulas don't have HMO supplements in it. And unfortunately, a lot of the formulas that do have HMO supplement have other like not so great ingredients in it. So we're able to provide recommendations around HMO supplements that can be helpful, because if you're using a bifidobacterium probiotic, it's not going to stick around if you're not giving them HMOs. And so that's another thing that is really beneficial. We do have HMO supplement recommendations. We have probiotic recommendations. We are working currently. We do have some of these, but we would like to build out even more recommendations for moms, because some people are like, maybe I don't want to give my kiddo a probiotic, or what can I do to help? So we do, there's data that taking omega-3s for breastfeeding moms can help boost bifidobacterium in baby guts. And so, you know, that's sort of an example of like another way that we're building out our product and constantly like adding to our actions is we're like, hey, let's provide, because you're right, probiotics, breastfeeding, awesome. Let's provide some more insight for moms, what they can do. So our science team is also working on developing those insights right now. And then I also think it's really powerful. Like, yes, while for many babies, the question is, do they not need a bifidobacterium probiotic? It's also really helpful to know, like, did it have the effect and should we stop? Many parents just keep their kids on probiotics indefinitely, and that can really have some potential negative impact on that diversity that we should be seeing around the time that solid foods are usually introduced. And that's actually like not getting that beneficial diversity at a, you know, that 6-7 month time frame is related to developing atopic March conditions, food allergies, asthma. So it's really important to know, hey, you took this probiotic, let's do a test. You can rest assured it's had a good effect and now you can stop. So I think that it isn't just starting probiotics, it's also stopping probiotics, which I think is like another really important thing. Sometimes it's like, you know, we always just want to do something, or tell a parent, hey, you don't need to give a probiotic. The gut is looking like a good community. So, but yeah, you definitely, you know, I always tell parents, babies have 2 jobs: to be cute, which they automatically do, and have bifidobacterium. And that's really, you know, we don't have to help with the cute thing. They've got that down. And then Susanna also shared her child, her experience in her child and microbiome testing, which I think can be really, you know, I can talk about it, but as someone who hasn't, you know, doesn't have kids and hasn't tested my kids, I think that her story and her experience is really, really powerful. Yeah, exactly. So her child had some staph that was present at, like, the opportunistic pathogen that was present at higher levels than ideal, but had really high bifidobacterium as well. So it was really helpful to be able to say, like, 1 month of this should be sufficient, so that you're not overdoing it, but you're also tackling, you know, optimizing the microbiome by targeting and like trying to get rid of the opportunistic pathogens. Yeah. And something that's like really important is, especially for babies, like our approach here and our philosophy at Tiny Health is boost beneficial bacteria to crowd out unfriendlies. It's one of the things that I think is like kind of alarming with adult tests used for babies is the idea of targeting bad bacteria and like trying to do these like things to get rid of bad bacteria. A lot of times we see very, you know, good effect of boosting beneficial bacteria to help. I think of it as just like, you got to keep the bullies in check on the playground. And you can do that by having more nice kids around. So if you just increase the bifidos, the nice kids, they show the other kids like, hey, you just can't be, you can be here, but you gotta behave. You gotta stay at lower levels. So yeah, so that's definitely like the approach we take. And then as you point out with older kids, we do have anybody who's eating solids. We have a huge array of recommendations, very specific food recommendations based on short chain fatty acids and fiber, digestion potential. And so there are many more recommendations that we are able to provide when people are eating solid foods and a wide diversity of foods. So there's lots of insights there as well. All right. Well, I don't know if there's any more questions. I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I want to let people, it's getting close to dinner, family time. Thank you for being here today. This is such a great, super interactive group of practitioners. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, I think we've got all the questions answered, so I will Yeah, I will log off. Thank you so much. Thank you for your amazing questions. Have a nice evening.